Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Pointino, and at each LHON conference, I provide an update on the LHON community. And this year, there's much to report. With a database of over 12,000 individuals, a global Facebook group with over 5,400 members, and an email list with over 2,000 people, the LHON community continues to grow. At the 2019 conference, I introduced and discussed this chart, which describes the wide range of activities taking place within the LHON community in order to let people know that there are many activities involved with having a strong LHON community and that volunteers are needed in each area to sustain and grow the community. At the 2021 virtual conference, several members of the LHON volunteer team described how the effort had expanded greatly in various areas, with significant activity underway in each of the core areas shown on this chart of research and scientific efforts, education, and community collaboration. And there had been improvements to our organizational strength in financial resources, human resources, and infrastructure repository, as well as ongoing international collaboration. Since then, the LHON community has developed even further. Starting with the research and scientific area, the science team has expanded to include several new members who bring important new perspectives to our discussions. We meet monthly to discuss recent LHON publications to increase our understanding. For those with an interest in reading and discussing medical journal articles about LHON, it's a fun way to spend an hour or so one evening each month. As I mentioned at the last LHON conference, we have a working group that's developing a roadmap for LHON. The purpose is to develop a consensus among LHON thought leaders about various aspects of LHON, to serve as a reference for future articles about LHON, and to identify what research projects should be pursued with greatest urgency. We've created a draft document with sections on definitions and classifications, diagnosis, natural history, patient care, therapeutic development, and statistics. The draft document has been shared with several LHON researchers around the world, and their input has been collected. The working group will review and assess the feedback, then determine next steps. We continually work to develop and enhance relationships with those in the scientific community who need to know about LHON. One of those groups is genetic counselors. I was asked to give a talk about LHON to the new special interest group for genetic counselors with an interest in ocular genetics. I invited Devin Schumann, a genetic counselor who happens to have a mitochondrial disorder and has helped with some of our LHON Sisterhood Zoom events, to join me. We made them aware of the many resources available to LHON families, as well as some issues that frequently come up when LHON families meet with a GC. At our first LHON conference in 2013, one of our speakers was a genetic counselor who specializes in ocular genetics. We're fortunate that she could join us again this year to talk a bit about LHON and ocular genetics, as well as the importance of creating an LHON registry, a topic that's been on our LHON project plan for years. Please welcome Carmen Trupik.
Thank you, Liz. You are clearly taller than me. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, so Lisa and I have known each other for a long time. And she asked me today to talk about two things. One, myself. I'm not a huge fan of getting up and just talking about myself, but I think it actually is valuable to tell you a little bit about my background and my history with this group of disorders and where I'm at today, because that falls right into a partnership and a program that we're just about to launch that I think is super exciting for this community. So I've been working in clinical genetics for the last 21 years, and for the first 8.5 of those years, I worked at an academic medical center entirely in ophthalmology genetics. So this is like a tiny, tiny little corner of medicine, very specialized. And, during that time, I met with many, many patients and families with inherited retinal disease, but also patients and families with optic nerve diseases, including LHON. Of course, it's an extremely rare condition, as you all know. So after 8.5 years of being there at a center where people came to us from a 10-state radius, I still only met during that time 3 or 4 families with LHON who came to our site. After that, I went and worked for a telemedicine company, a little startup telemedicine company that was really founded on the principle that there are many patients and families who would benefit from access to genetic services. So genetic services would include genetic testing, genetic counseling, and genetic test interpretation and management. Like, what do you do with those results? Who weren't getting to the academic medical centers. And I very much felt this. Like, during those 8.5 years that I was at that academic medical center, we would sometimes have people call us, family members call us, want services in their communities that were very similar to what we were doing, and it just didn't exist. So that was really exciting to me to launch this service, to be able to provide those kind of access to those kind of services in a telemedicine model and really expand the reach. But over time, what we learned was that even by breaking down those barriers, there was still this huge barrier that remained around cost. That the cost of genetic testing and insurance policies and reimbursement issues made it very difficult for many people to obtain access to genetic testing. And I don't know if any of you were in the scientific sessions this morning. I think there were also kind of concurrent LHON sessions going on, so maybe not many. But it has made my little science heart very happy today to be in many science sessions. But Dr. Yeski talked about this exact problem and what they are doing as an organization. So this is really what I spent years building, is building partnerships between industry, so read biopharma, between industry, patient communities, and community level physicians to really find ways that we could help patients get access to these services. And that includes making genetic testing free, finding ways to do that, forging these partnerships to make that happen. So I did that for a number of years. And then I very recently, less than a month ago, moved over to a nonprofit foundation called RareX. And that's kind of the transition, and then the part 2 of what I'm really here and wanted to tell you a little bit about. So RareX is a nonprofit organization that has a data collection and data analysis platform that enables rare disease patient communities to share their data, to own their data, to make it readily available for research. And then we forge partnerships to ensure that that research actually happens. And what we are doing in collaboration with the LHON leadership is we are creating a vision consortium. So I know there's lots of conversation here. There you go. So I know there's lots of conversation here at this larger meeting about the registry that the UMDF is sponsoring. And I want to make it clear that this is not in competition with that in any way. It's not a one or the other kind of thing. So what we're really developing and what we're really excited about doing is building this platform that enables cross-disorder research, cross-disorder collaboration, and that really is able to garner more investment from biopharma, because what we're working on isn't one tiny little rare disease, but a collection of disorders that share certain underlying characteristics. So we are building this consortium across other rare disorders that relate to vision loss. And we really believe that that is going to help these different advocacy groups, including your group, to be able to sort of harness the power of other groups like yours with slightly different disorders. Just as a tangent, one of the other things that I heard talked about today in one of the scientific sessions, I don't know how many of you were in there during I forgot what they called it now. Yeah. What did they call it? The accelerators grant. They called it something else that was with a mic. Anyway, the one where there were these 5-minute presentations about these research projects, and which was very fun. And one of them, they were talking about cross-disorder approaches to treatment of optic nerve disease, and that what happens in optic nerve disease is that there is a progression from initial primary optic nerve disease to secondary retinal disease and retinal degeneration. And it's interesting that the flip also happens. I don't know if you know that, but the flip also happens. So in primary inherited retinal disease, nearly all of those patients develop secondary optic nerve disease. There are clearly correlates that happen here on an underlying pathophysiologic level that we need to understand better. And we want to really encourage investment into that kind of research for cross-disorder therapies. I have no idea if I actually covered most of what was on this slide. But tomorrow, Melinda is going to talk more about the specifics of this research platform and how you can get involved and how we anticipate this evolving over time. This is very much a partnership, and we'll need feedback and all of your interest and engagement. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carmen. Moving from the science activities to our education efforts, Molly Garone has taken on the role of education director within the LHON project. The LHON.org website continues to be the hub of information about all aspects of LHON. We continue to send LHON emails to alert the LHON community to upcoming events. If you're not currently receiving regular email updates about what's happening in the LHON community, be sure to get your current email address added to the list. You can register on the contact page of the LHON.org site, or send me a message via Facebook Messenger, or email me at lhonpoints@aol.com, and I can add you to the list. Tomorrow, Molly will discuss 2 new documents we've created this year, one describing LHON and Charles Bonnet syndrome, and another summarizing key information about LHON and migraine. In addition, Molly has collaborated with Jerry Laurie to create several guides to navigating LHON with money in mind. Jerry, could you please talk a bit about this project and these documents?
Good afternoon. My name is Jerry Laurie, and I became associated with the LHON community approximately 3.5 years ago when my husband Paul became affected. In July of 2020, Global Genes put out a call for applications for what they called a Financial Advocacy Rare Patient Impact Grant, and I volunteered to work with Lissa on the project. We filled out the grant application, stating our intention was to hold a couple of webinars and create a single-page trifold brochure highlighting organizations that offered free or low-cost programs or services for the blind and visually impaired. We focused that first effort on California since we both lived here, and we believed we knew the programs and services offered. As we started researching and writing, we quickly realized that our attempt to put all the information we found into a brochure was not going to be sufficient. In fact, at publication, our first guide ended up being 32 pages long, and they're even longer now. A year after we published California, Global Genes came back to us offering another grant if we do more states. Since we already had a template, we agreed to do 3 more specific state guides, Washington, Oregon, and Texas, as well as a generic guide for the states we hadn't gotten to yet. We tagged volunteers in each of those locations to help us with the specifics of their state, and 4 additional guides were made available late last year. Every guide, whether it's generic or state-specific, has sections covering the topics of training and technical resources, disability and medical insurance, social security, education, employment, transportation, travel and leisure, assistive technology, and tax tips. A few highlighted specifics within those chapters are things like the names and contact info for various groups that offer free life skills and assistive technology training all over the country or virtually, specific tax deductions for the legally blind, online services that allow you to download free audiobooks, periodicals, and newspapers straight to your phone, free lifetime passes to all the national parks. There's even an organization in Texas that provides free refurbished computers and software to people throughout the United States who are blind or visually impaired. I can't turn my page. So that's just a sampling of what's in the various guides. If you'd like to get one, you can email LHONproject@gmail.com and we'll send you a PDF version. Please let us know where you live so we can send you the correct one. And it's our intention that these guides become living documents, meaning they can be updated and edited as we discover new organizations and services, which we have done every single time we've written a new guide. Thank you for listening. We hope to hear from you. LHONproject@gmail.com.
Thank you, Jared. As you can imagine, that was a lot of work and we appreciate everything you've done. Thank you. And continue to do. In addition, several people in the LHON community have been initiating social media projects to raise awareness of LHON and educate the world about LHON. For instance, Blake Steinica started a YouTube project called Adapting Sight. Jared Hara has a podcast called The Blind People Watcher. And we heard during the first LHON panel from Brian McCarthy, who created a video series called Dislabeled, and from Michael Lillis, who initiated an Instagram account called LHON Awareness. For those of you who've been in the community a while, you're aware that since we started having LHON conferences in 2013, I've led them with strong support from a variety of people. This year, I've been delighted to have Maria Johnson and Jessica Loomer take over the leadership role as program co-chairs for our LHON conferences. In addition to developing the research and scientific and the education projects, we've also extensively expanded our community collaboration efforts this year. This global LHON Facebook group continues to be the hub of connection for the global LHON community. And in just a few months, we'll be celebrating the 100th LHON live call. That's an opportunity for everyone in the LHON community to come together and chat about anything and everything. It's always the first Wednesday of the month, and the discussions are lively and the friendships developed are extremely valuable. While it's nice to have the monthly calls open to all, it's also nice to develop connections with folks in the LHON community who live somewhat nearby. We now have regional groups with regular Zoom gatherings in most regions of the US. Some of the groups that existed last year have expanded to include more states. Some are new since last year's virtual conference. Our current regional Zoom events take place for New England. There's one for New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. There's a Georgia, Florida, Alabama group that's new, completely new this year. Midwest is new this year. Texas and Oklahoma has expanded to include Arkansas and Louisiana, Pacific Northwest, and Southwest. In addition, we found that folks who have a shared affiliation with LHON enjoy getting on Zoom and chatting together. New since our last conference are the spouses and the onset at 60+ events, while the groups for dads and for moms of LHON affected kids of all ages, the LHON Sisterhood, and the teens and young adult groups continue strong. In addition, from time to time, we have Zoom events for groups based on their symptom or mutation, including LHON+, LHON MS, and the 3460 mutation. We also have groups that connect based on specific topics. At last year's conference, we discussed our navigating education and our navigating employment groups. New this year is the assistive technology group. Jessica Loomer has taken on the role of community collaboration director for the LHON project. And I didn't warn Jessica to come up in front of the panel, but do you want to come up, grab a mic and just tell folks a little bit about how the community is going and how folks can get more involved? There you go. Take the mic.
Hello, everyone. I was like, ooh, rogue conversation. I'm super excited. There has been so much growth and so much opportunity that has happened in our LHON community. It's been honestly an honor to be able to help build and grow to really make us more sustainable across the entire country, but really the ability for us to have people from all over the country find their spot. And it's what kind of resonates and where people feel most comfortable. But we also, I mean, and then it's cross-platform because sometimes you feel it's great to get to know the people in your own backyard through Southwest or wherever you reside, but then also being able to pull our experts within the community. Like for assistive technology, it's actually Sarah Nappy that called, and she's actually going to get her master's in assistive technology to go on to be a instructor. So we're really kind of digging in and able to get the resources and the professionalism and the value from just within our own community. So it's been fantastic. So what's next? There's oftentimes I get a lot of people that say like, oh, what about this? Or what about mentoring? Or there's a ton of ideas that are always kind of stirring up of other groups that we should maybe start, or someone wants to see like a 1 or 2 times a year organization pop up. The best example is when Howard Sumner reached out to Liz and I and said, it would be really great for us to have a onset after 60 call, because I really do feel like I find value meeting people that were affected at the same age I was. And so I said, absolutely. How can I best support you to get this call done? And so I actually jump on the call with him. I'm fairly quiet on that call. I try to reside, but and helped him kick off this call. And so my call to you, all of you, is that if you're seeing a need, where can we fill a gap? Is there something that you want to jump into? Or maybe it's a group that already is being built and you want to jump in and help. Please reach out. This is definitely the best opportunity. There's so much work to still be done, but there's so much fun that we have. We have a blast every single month. I get the opportunity to speak with all the leaders within the entire LHON organization. And my biggest goal is to make sure that everyone has the information that they need, but they also were seamless in the sense of what information one person has, another person has. So we really work to make this organization as strong and supported as possible. So if there's something that you would like to get into, please reach out to any of us. Let us know how we can best support your initiative and or where you want to be able to jump right in, because we're really excited for it. We have lots of plans to continue to grow and really make this community super strong, and being able to send webs out so we can continue to grow and learn more things. There's so much still to learn. So please let us know how we can best help. And thank you. I think that's it.
Thanks, Jessica. We continue to collaborate internationally whenever we can. It's obviously easiest with Canada for geographic proximity, language, and time zone reasons. We're fortunate to have the president of LHON Canada here, Kevin Boland, to update us on that group.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, I was just, as I got up here and I was thinking about what I was going to say, I was sort of reflecting on the global nature of the disease, and the fact that there's no barriers to it. There's, groups in different countries, and there's mutations that are more prevalent in different countries, of course. It's definitely allowed me to meet some people in other countries. For instance, Lisa and I traveled to Sweden in 2019 to go to the LHON Sweden conference, which was a lot of fun and really interesting. Except Lisa lost her luggage on the way, so I just remembered that right now. For instance, that was a lot of fun and really, gave us some exposure to a different group and got it, let us meet some different people and travel in Sweden, which was a lot of fun. Lissa also connected me to Russell Wheeler, who's one of the people in charge of the LHON Society in the UK. I think this is my 5th LHON conference in the US. And over the years, of course, there's been many Canadians who have come down, including many members of my family. But there's also been people from Australia, people from Brazil. Trying to think of some of the others that would have traveled from fairly far. So it's this event has a lot of reach, and just to transition that to sort of our organization, we launched in 2018, or I guess late 2017, LHON Canada. We're a registered nonprofit. We had our first conference in Ottawa, which a few people, I think, in this room attended. And that was kind of our launch event. We had a blind hockey game that people could go see. It was pretty well attended. I think we had about 100 people. So that sort of kicked off our organization, and the purpose, of course, was similar to this. Get people to meet one another in person, share stories, network, get some information from specialists. We had Dr. Sadoun at both our Ottawa conference in 2018 and our Vancouver conference in 2019. And Dr. Karanja, who's many of you also know, was at both conferences. And we had Dr. Yue Man. No, we didn't. He's supposed to come to the next one in Montreal. We're hoping to have a conference in the fall. But we had Dr. Corelli in Vancouver as well. So I like to think we put on some pretty good events. And unfortunately, the pandemic derailed sort of our in-person events. What we sort of pivoted to was trying to do a spotlight every quarter or so on somebody in the community, and do a one-on-one interview or a little, I think did a Christmas party one year where people could come on and just share what they were up to. And of course, a lot of Canadians are joining, the calls that the monthly calls that Liz has already spoken about. I think we're a little bit more grassroots, I would say, than the LHON project in the US, just given the scale of Canada and being so much smaller, and people living a lot further away from one another. But we've got a fairly large Facebook group now, which a lot of people share information on. We have something we've been working on is mentoring and peer networking, getting people in a certain geographical area to somebody becomes affected. I try to match them up with somebody else, building relationships with some of the neuro-ophthalmologists across the country, so they can better identify LHON when they see it, and trying to get people to go see Dr. Karanja in Ottawa, just because he's the kind of the guy in Canada who's best connected to some of the research and trials that are happening. Fortunately, we haven't had any trials in Canada for some time, but they can often, Canadians can often come to the US. Also, this year we launched a scholarship, so two $2,000 scholarships for anybody who is affected and is looking to train or retrain in pretty much anything. We leave it pretty broad. So if whether it's somebody going to post-secondary or somebody who just wants to upgrade their computer skills or learn something else that's going to help them advance their career, they can apply for the scholarship. And we're going to make the decision at the end of June, just based on the applicants. We put a little board together who are going to decide who the recipients are going to be. So I'm very excited about that. And like I mentioned, hopefully a conference in Montreal in the fall. We just got a get ourselves organized. And the two conferences we have had in Canada had a lot of Americans who were, particularly in Vancouver, a lot of people from Seattle came up. And in Ottawa, we also had other Americans come who are sort of close to there. So if anyone is in that situation and would like to attend, that would be great, and we would welcome you.
Thank you, Kevin. So in closing, I would just ask you to please consider if and how you might like to become more involved with the LHON community. Perhaps you'd like to join some of these existing Facebook groups and Zoom events and get acquainted with folks in your area or discuss topics of interest. Or perhaps there isn't currently an active group in your state or region and you'd like to help get that underway. Or maybe you'd like to initiate a group on a topic of interest and pull together a team of folks with common interests. We also need people to help with organizational tasks such as fundraising, database management, communications, whatever part of the process you enjoy, however much time you could give to the effort, please consider getting involved. Just contact me at LHON@AOL.com or via Facebook, or connect with Jessica, Molly, any of the other LHON community leaders, and let's have a conversation. Thank you.
I just want to say to Jerry, I'll just say it on the mic, those guides are really incredible. And when I saw that guide, I was like, shoot, we need to recreate the same thing for Canada, because we have a lot of specific, province by province, similar to here. Different rules and different organizations and different provinces, access to, medical information or resources in different provinces. So we're working on replicating that, because it's very good.